Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
In this week's episode of the Kindness Project, we talk about Lego, curries, and we have part 2 of our interview with Paula Petry PhD.
Welcome one and all to another episode of the Kindness Project. We tend to bring the energy, and I think what's got more energy than a circus ringmaster dictating to a crowd as he bellows out.
Is that what you were channeling there, a circus ringmaster?
Yes.
I liked it a lot. Did you get that feel, right? Circus ringmaster?
I did. I really did.
I was imagining like a little two-tailed coat.
Yes, a big red coat.
And a
Barnum style.
Black and gold trim. Wow.
And a whip.
Perfection.
You're so sometimes. Black and gold trim. Perfection, darling. Have you got long red black and gold trim coat, Russ?
I haven't. I can't say I have.
Would you like to add one to your repertoire?
I wonder where you get one of them. Although,
you just Google ringmaster.
The costume shop.
I was on Eventbrite yesterday. My own Eventbrite, looking at what's on in Norwich. Guess what was on?
The circus.
No. Way Back Clothes Shop.
Ah, right. Okay, somebody's pinched your idea, Russ.
Way back. And that's normal. That's
way back. Not way a customer clothes shop. That's got on in Norwich yet.
Well, it was get a ton of clothes or something like that.
A ton?
Yeah, it's a kilo sale.
Yeah, a kilo sale.
Who's buying a ton of clothes though?
A kilo sale.
Right. When you asked the question, what's going on in Norwich, I thought the answer was going to be everything, everywhere, all at once.
But if it's going on Norwich, would it be everywhere?
Norwich is the only place you need to worry about, isn't it? Because it's the best city in the world.
That's right. But was the time.
So you're going to take a visit to there, buy a ton of clothes sale?
Oh, no. So that was on today at 10 o'clock.
Go on. What else was on Eventbrite?
I did find interesting thing about Lego on there.
Lego, go on.
So it's like a Lego meet that you go and see people's buildings and all that.
Oh, nice.
So
I'm always deeply impressed when people make Lego stuff. I remember years ago, I don't know if you remember it, Charlotte, because I think you were only little. We went to an art exhibition called Art of the Brick. And that was amazing. And then Sophie, who's just popped head out the downstairs loo and was just listening to the podcast, went to Legoland in winter, didn't we?
I love
I thought it was going to be a silent dance, and suddenly it moved from a silent dance to a loud bellow.
I want that little sofa spawn by then.
Yeah. Art of the Brick. It's amazing. Look by up.
Legoland, but
No, it was in the Trim Brewery.
Doesn't clarify anything for me. I don't know what that is.
It's in East London, near Brick Lane.
Brick Lane. Sorry.
We love
bagels. We do love bagels.
Oh, Brick Lane bagels. Listeners, if you've never been to Brick Lane, number one, maybe the best place for curries, but you've got to be really selective when you go for a Brick Lane curry, because Brick Lane is now known for curries. Actually, it's not improved the quality. There's too many pop-up.
Brick Lane's not known for curries, it's known for bagels.
Brick Lane is known for curries.
I've never heard that about Brick Lane.
Brick Lane is known for curries.
I know Brick Lane is curries, not bagels.
Curries or bagels?
Yeah, curries.
Right. That is a new game we can play for the quiz. I'm going to pick a place, and you've got to tell me. No Googling.
What it's known for.
No, and it's going to either be curries or bagels, right?
That's so niche.
Curries or bagels. So let me just.
But like, there's so many Brick Lane bagels in Brick Lane.
Right.
There's like 3.
Okay. So the first one is going to be called. The first one's going to be called "My Internet's Slow," so you need to just bear with me.
Yeah, your laptop was complaining about that.
Can you two
just riff?
It just riffed, and just do what you need to. Thing is, every curry. I was looking at the road that the Birmingham Curry Mile is on, and I can't find the actual name of the road. It just says Birmingham Curry Mile. So the Birmingham Curry Mile. The Birmingham Curry Mile, is that famous for curries or bagels?
Curries.
Bagels. You're wrong. You're both wrong. It's deceiving, this game, isn't it?
It's the only place I go in Birmingham to buy me electronics. Curries.
Curries.
I got the joke. I got the joke. Quite a 90s niche joke, Raz, but
Curries are still around.
I tell you what I'm going to do. I will plan the next episode of the Kindness Project a special edition of curries and bagels.
Curries or bagels.
Let's write down. I can't believe it.
I've just invented a new game on the fly. I've got to prep for it.
I can't believe in this day and age, just outside London, you can't get a broadband that works. So,
how is it near the how is it near the greatest part of the?
I have absolutely no trouble with my broadband, as you know. I'm always available.
It's always available.
It's always available. So is his Wi-Fi.
Raz is like his Wi-Fi, always available. Always open.
I have 2 lines here, just in case, but yeah.
Well, an emergency Wi-Fi line. You know what Raz's Wi-Fi is like? Always ready to get down to business, like Raz. Let's get down to business, Raz and Games. And on that note, let's get down to business and right. Okay, so what's the first kind of news?
Man embarks on 143 acts of kindness missions in 40 days. Kevin Bonecutter is on a mission. His goal...
Kevin Bonecutter? What an amazing name he's got.
Well, maybe it's not Bonecutter, maybe it's Bonnet Shooter.
No, it's Bonecutter. Bonecutter. But so did you try and...
job?
He's a mortician. Or a doctor.
He's a kind mortician, though. Kevin Bonecutter. Sounds like wrestling.
It sounds like the kind of name someone gives themselves the first time they play D&D.
The Bonecutter.
Bonecutter.
What would be your one? What would be your D&D name, Raz?
I don't know. I don't play D&D.
Right. I'm the Bonecutter. Charlotte, so what's your nickname for the first time?
My first character was called Asda.
Asda. So do you want to be Little? Little Russ.
I'll go say
Little Russ. Right. Tell us about Kevin Bonecutter.
He completed his first act of kindness on June 1st. Since then, he's been cutting grass at vacant homes and
not cutting boats.
Nope. Picking up trash and handing out free food and snacks on the west side of Cincinnati. WKRT met Bonecutter at one of his first projects at the intersection of Glenmore Avenue and Glenway Avenue. Ooh.
It was a median triangle that had a foot and a half of tall grass and was just full of garbage and bush that had been run over by cars multiple times, said Bonecutter. And I thought, how can I make this better? I cut the bush down, but then as I kept driving by it, the grass kept coming and nobody else was cutting it. Bonecutter loves a bit of cutting, doesn't he? Bonecutter started July the 4th by taking part in a 5K raising money for paediatrics brain tumour research and ended it with more grass cutting. All the time trying to be a positive change that can inspire others. That's what I like. Just being a positive change, because you can assume that move towards doing cutting that grass is just about that grass, and it's not. It's about showing that it can be done and engendering and encouraging others to make positive change in a world that sometimes can feel hopeless, but it's actually, when you look, full of hope. If I've learned anything from Kevin Bonecutter, it's that.
Fieldhead Primary Academy pupils deliver kindness hug cards across Birstall to show people that they care. Pupils at a Birstall school have been spreading kindness hug cards to the local community as part of their RE lessons on the topic of how do we show we care. As part of the RE curriculum, Year 1 pupils at Fieldhead have been studying stories from the Bible and looking at how different religions show that they care for each other. After reading the Good Samaritan and learning about a variety of religious texts, the class discussed who and what might need care, such as loved ones, the environment, and even strangers. The class decided to put their learning into practice with kindness cards, each with a message of hope, reading, Sapphire class have been learning about simple ways to show we care and how to show kindness. Here is a little something to show we care, with love from Sapphire class at Fieldhead Primary Academy. Each pupil was given one envelope to gift strangers in the Birstall community. One resident who received a card through his letterbox phoned the school to let everyone know how grateful he was. Liz Hutchinson, Year 1 teacher, said, I am thrilled with the response from residents and workers who received our kindness cards. The class have worked very hard on their lessons, learning all about acts of kindness and how to care for those around us. Everyone deserves an act of kindness, and I'm so proud of the pupils for spreading some cheer throughout Birstall. Our school ethos is to be a great school at the heart of our community, and this was definitely proven by our Year 1 class.
Love it. And it's really interesting. I think as we get older, we can have the tend to get a little more cynical about life. I think showing kids that kindness matters is really important. Because hopefully it's a trend that they continue throughout their lives.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce the interview getters this week?
I am really carrying this episode. Huh?
You are. It's your episode. It's all about Charlotte this week.
Oh no. Oh no. I'm so sorry, listeners. So we have the second part of our interview, which you so succinctly introduced last week, from Paula Petry.
Paula's an amazing lady. Has an amazing. Sorry, should I pick this one up?
Yeah.
As an amazing story, and one which effectively she learnt from quite a tough experience with her child, but one where she used that experience, which a lot of people would really struggle with, to do something positive in the world. So let's hear the second part of the interview with Paula. I found the experience of writing the book really cathartic and helpful, particularly because I wrote about my mum and the experience of my mum. It felt like I was leaving a bit of a tribute for my mum in that book, funny enough. So tell me about the book, and then tell me a bit about how you find writing a book as an experience, and whether it was as cathartic for you as it was for me.
Definitely catharsis. You know, when you relive, I relived all of that part of my life with my daughter, and so as things came up, I had that opportunity to revisit it, but from many years later, and give it a reframe. To look at it from different, right? From kind of an ego point of view, rather than at the moment you're in it, right? But then you can, and I do think that catharsis, I literally do think it's healing those wounds in the body. We say catharsis, but literally I think it frees us from some misconceptions maybe that we had at the time, right? And or just the trauma at the time, in my experience. So
they say that stress causes damage to the body, don't they? They know that's the case. So yeah, finding a way to relieve that stress, I suppose, was important. But we haven't explored what the book is. So start. What was the motivation for writing the book, and tell me the story?
Okay. So the motivation was a tribute to my daughter, to my daughter's life. It was a tribute to other parents to have a child with a disability, because the first half of the book is about that struggle and the need to be, and what it takes. So the courage and persistence to get what people think is the basic needs met for their child, and they are basic, but they're different in society, particularly in the 80s and even prior, of course, right? We're not ready for our children. So we were really paving a new path forward. So what it takes, I think I found appreciation for myself, other parents, and wanting the world, anyone interested in the book, to really appreciate what it takes for parents to raise a child with a disability. Life and death, and that transformation that comes from that. And we think of grief, we don't think of transformation. But there's an acceptance process, but then we're transformed in some way, and helping people see grief in that way and the positives that come from that.
And what are they? What did you learn through that journey that you now see as positive?
Well, as I've dug into and my whole spiritual path, I now believe that life lives on, right? So for me, there's this huge transformation, and that life lives on. And then when we realize that our loved ones, really the promise of seeing our loved ones in the afterlife is real. That's my worldview. I've had many experiences that would confirm that, significant research to confirm that, but it is very freeing. And that's what the research also finds. You feel lighter, you feel more joy. There's a sense of relief. There's a sense of relief knowing your loved one is well.
It's so interesting, and I think I've shared with you before that I'm not deep enough to be spiritual. I don't think I have a really shallow atheistic view of the world. But the interesting thing for me is, you're right. The every piece of research about well-being is all around having faith in something greater than you. And I don't, and it's strange, but having faith in something greater than you is shown to improve well-being. There's a really great piece of research called around blue zones. So it's around the places in the world where people live longer, happier, healthier lives. And one of the tenets of this is believing in something bigger than you. So like having that belief and having that faith is really important. One thing you talk in your book, Paula, that I'm interested in exploring is relinquishing control and thinking you're like sort of like having the ability to just turn around and go, I can't control everything. Help me understand how that manifests in the book and what you learned through that journey.
Yes, well, absolutely. This was the number one thing that I think changed with me with my daughter's death, because I was controlling her life at the minuscular level all the time. I mean, every doctor, I knew everything about spina bifida, what to do, what caused infection, what caused this. I was in the appointments. I had the best equipment. She had everything. The school, she had an A, everything I was in charge of, in control of, and obviously not in control of her death. Yeah. Right. I mean, and so that just burst open this, the possibility of something else to emerge very different. And that, I believe, was the not having control over things. And then it's moved that whole idea into what does life look like or feel like when we're not in that place. It took me a long time to get there, but it's in flow instead of in control. David Hawkins' work, force versus power. You're forcing things, you want things, you're dictating things, you're in charge of things, right? And then with grief, you're in a puddle, like for so long, you're not in charge of anything. And then you rise up like the phoenix, and you rise up very different in that you are in flow.
Yeah.
That energy to control is just not accessible.
Okay. And it's, I think that element of, I mean, for me, and again, this is coming from my different worldview perspective. The Stoics talked a lot about focusing on what you can control, which is very little, right? You know, actually, you can have influence on stuff, but
Yes.
the stuff that, and there's only two things you can control, really: your thoughts and your actions, and everything else is outside. You might be able to influence it, but actually you can't control it. And I think there's a freedom in that doesn't, when you think you can control everything, you try and you fail, because it's it's just one of those things. So yeah, I agree. There's a freedom in control. But I know one of the other things you talk about in the book is sort of historic ways of healing, and this is an area that I'm really interested to understand a bit more, starting from a low knowledge base. So help me understand what you've learned about that and how it's impacted you in your life.
Yes. So we it goes back to the indigenous ways, and I studied with the shamans in Peru, and I studied through the Four Winds Society. I took a year off and went and studied and began to practice immediately. So this is what I have learned. The interconnectedness of life, Chris, is the web of life from an indigenous point of view. Globally, everyone, all indigenous cultures know and understand this web of life. So what is it? So now we have all the science of this unifying field, the quantum field, and that it's like airways. So what I'm thinking and feeling and sending, I can send to another person. The power of prayer is really real, right? So, but what are we praying for? It's also all of our dark thoughts, right? Also affect everybody. They affect our children, right? And you know that well in this work. So we can, with our minds, move energy for the purpose of healing. And so that's using the energy of this quantum field and sending it into locations within our own body and in the body of others. In the we have an electromagnetic field. We know that by science. We're connected in with the earth through her electromagnetic field. And so there's that big piece of it. The other piece is I did a beautiful curriculum. It's being adopted, reviewed by actually an organization in the UK that does certification programs and diploma programs for areas of wellness, to offer it as a course. And so how is it that we can move, because the whole world has got stuck in this fight or flight that happened during COVID, right? Death was at our door. Do we go outside or not? Right? Because COVID was at our door. And then we've stayed in this. It's had really we see that particularly with youth and the statistics with youth and the suicide rates and all of that. But we're in fight or flight. How do we move out of that? And so we tone this longest nerve in our body, the vagus nerve, and many of the practices to tone it, we say tone or activate it, which activates our digest and rest, right? We come into calm, we come into this calm state, are practices that are indigenous.
Right.
So all of the breath work, any type of breath work does that. It's almost immediate. Cold water, people are doing these barrels, these Wim Hof is the cold water stuff.
You know what's weird? You know what's really interesting? I was because I've been away for a couple of days before I recorded this, down on the south coast of the UK, and I was in a sauna. Chatting to this guy in the sauna. I didn't know him, just started the conversation in the sauna, and I was talking, and he lived in France, had a big business up in Sunderland, and lived in France and commuted between the two, and just had this really interesting chat with a random stranger, which I really enjoyed. And we were talking about well-being. And the reason we got into the conversation is because we're both sitting in the sauna, and the first thing he says to me is, "I've heard this is really good for you." Like, the Scandinavians swear by it, and but we're talking about the Scandinavians go from super hot, to super cold, right?
Perfect formula, great.
Yeah. So I was like, and I said the challenge that I've got. And I get all of this cold water therapy and like the impact of it, is that like when you go cold, you go, this doesn't feel right. Like the initial reaction is like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? So anyway, a little bit later on in the day, we go to the beach. So Sophie, my youngest, Cassie and I are at the beach. And like all kids, she loves the beach, like most kids. She loves the beach and the sea. So Sophie goes out into the sea. She's like, "Dad, come on." And I'm going, "That's going to be really cold out there. That is going to be freezing. I don't want to go. It's going to be." But she's, "Dad, come on." And I've done everything I can to put off going in, Paula. But at this point, I need to go in. And I do it every single time. The first 2 minutes I go, this is cold. But once I'm in, it's such an amazing experience being in like sea swimming and being in that cold water. I think there is something with that cold water immersion.
Yes.
I just need to get better at getting in. That because I do cold water immersion. It takes me 20 minutes to get into.
I'm the same. I'm the same.
So yeah, I think we could learn a lot from that. Changing our biology to just like sort of, and because
it's amazing, Chris. What actually happens is that one of the things is that the dopamine release is 250% time of times what would be normal, right? And we burn in that cold water. We also releases. It activates this burning of our fat cells. So people that sit in this cold actually have experienced weight loss. But also the endorphins. So we actually have this experience, and the dopamine, it's recommended because for ADHD, there's good research that shows that you may have a lack of dopamine naturally, your production of dopamine. So it's recommended for people with ADHD. But the wellness and the brain chemistry.
The arguments say that part of the challenge with ADHD is we immediately, like the Western perspective on it is that we medicate. And I'm not convinced we've explored all of the other ways that we can potentially help kids with ADHD cope with life in other ways. And maybe cold water therapy is one of them. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And earthing is another one, just putting our hands and feet, our body as much as possible on the earth. And when you're in natural water, as you're describing, connecting up and it resets. So it's another reset for the vagus nerve, meaning that you move out of fight or flight, which is the stress response is fight or flight, which shortens lives, literally shortens lives.
I said this to Cassie. I love, and it's weird because a recorded version of this doesn't do the same thing for me, but I love just hearing the sea. Just that wave lapping in and out just feels cathartic. You know what I mean? It's coming back to the natural world, isn't it? That element of cathartic feeling is really interesting.
Yeah. And what happens physically with the body is that we produce positive molecules. The loving Mother Nature has available to us the negative ions, and the convergence of those two neutralize and is a huge health benefit to us and our bodies.
100%.
So
what's your one tip to do to have more, that we can all do to have a bit more well-being in our lives?
Everything goes back to the breath. I would say really doing some type of breath work to slow down and reset every day. 10 minutes would be my. And the second, though, is to choose of the modalities that you come across, and then do the one that you are most likely to do. Like I love dance. And so my wellness practice is really dance, because that's the one I most likely do because I love to do it. So
what kind of dancing do you do? Tell me about that.
Well, I learned the whirling dervish, the oneness Sufi dance. And so it's with a scarf and it's with music I love, and I twirl, and I can be sending positive thoughts to myself, to others, to the world, and you go into a kind of a meditative state of
interesting
well-being for self and for others.
The whirling dervish. I need to Google that to understand a bit more. That sounds great. Now, you know what I love reading all your content that I've been doing in preparation for this interview is your the way that you talk about Joseph Campbell's work, the hero's journey element. Tell me how that applies to the work you do. And how you use the hero's journey to help others.
Yes, absolutely. You see, if we see ourselves in the state of suffering and lack, and the world's not fair to us, and why did this happen to me? Right. So those are the people I've worked with. Right. We've a lot of people get stuck there, but everybody lands there at some time in their life. I've never met anybody who doesn't. So for me, the hero's journey tells us, right, that there's this transformation process, right? So you leave home, right? There's 7, 12, 16, there are different steps and in different people's versions, but it's the leaving home. And we can even think of the youth, growing up into a transition into adulthood, right? And they leave the normal and they go into an abnormal world. And in that, for me, it was the world of disability was an abnormal world. And then you have trials and tribulations, and you're in the belly of the whale, right? But along come the mentors. And I mapped out my hero's journey. I've been it around a couple times and found this appreciation for people who helped me out of the muck. And they're designed to do that. See, he looked at his work is beautiful. He looked across cultures, and he found in mythology, and that was his passion. And he said, "Wow, this story," he labeled Hero's Journey, "is everywhere across."
100%. Well, I mean, you read Homer's Odyssey, or you read the Jason and the Argonauts, and the story. It comes from. But you can go all the way forward to a Hollywood film of last year, and it's
yes.
And I think the reason that, and it was interesting that it took so long for somebody to do it as well as Joseph Campbell, I think, because I love the hero's journey, because it signifies something about the human experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that lives in all of us. As Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz is my favorite, right? And then she clicked her heels and she went back home, so that it's coming back to self. And that's part of I think, our modern world. If we had we're in that place of the belly of the whale right now, right? And I think what's missing for us is to coming back home to self, to who we really are, and back into this sacred world.
So here's where I can really benefit with your insight. So I think sometimes, and this isn't only my experience in my own family, but other younger people I talk to, sometimes challenge and dealing with adversity, particularly for kids who have gone through the pandemic,
Yes.
Often feels a bit more challenging than it would be from our perspective, because we've been through enough of those ups and downs in life to realise that adversity comes with an element of growth if you get through it in the right way. How do we help our kids understand feeling that they are in the belly of the whale, or going through those particular challenges is just part of life?
That's an excellent question, because they don't have the long view, right?
Yeah,
They
true.
don't have, and everything is immediate, right? Their emotions are intense. So that teaching probably comes later. I think helping them reframe as their experiences of where in the moment where they can find some wisdom in that moment, in that experience, that really kids can do, and they appreciate it. I think they really want to be listened to. In my experience in working with youth, they love the fact that we were listening and that they were helping each other. So if I can do it, you can do it. And they see themselves as a separate subspecies as a youth, right? It's that age group where I'm not like you. I'm this.
Well, that's
And so if you can do it, John, who's also 14, that means I can do it.
But
and
that's part of the challenge, isn't it? It's like you're taking advice from somebody who's 45 or 70, or it's like, well, I'm different, not realizing that we were there. We were there at one point in the past as well. And
I know.
I mean, I think we're destined to repeat it, aren't we? Because I remember when I was 15 or 14 or 17, and you turn around and go, what did my parents know about my lived experience? But actually, it's I think you've got to go through your own learning journey, haven't you? That's the reality of it. It's like
yes, and giving them
that point you made about learning from your peers, because it feels a bit more immediate. It's really interesting.
Yes, and giving them the opportunities to come together with peers who are further down the road. That was the parent to parent in Miami experience. We were trained, and we were further down the road than other people, and then we'd run into others. So that's because we tend birds of a feather flock together. But so you know, if you're in a low state, you're most likely hanging out with other low state people in a low vibration, low mental state, right? So then putting together things where there's all kinds of kids in there is the beauty.
But there's aligned experience, right? You know, there's people with
somebody look at, he got himself out of this, or she got herself out of this. Is an inspiration, is that mentor. When you're in the belly of the whale, the mentor comes along. Or Oregon, here in the state of Oregon, they've put together a youth counseling hotline, and youth are answering the hotlines. And then trained licensed clinical social workers are, behind listening and intervening.
But the advices come from people like them, as opposed to adults, where you might turn around and go, it's interesting though, isn't it? We're always, and I think I'll probably apply this to my own life. We're really good at giving advice. Like, one of my favourite phrases is, what advice would we give our friend? Because the advice we give ourselves in our own head sometimes isn't the way to go. It's the advice that we give a friend that sometimes might be more powerful. But thank you for that. Really appreciate that. I'm sure there's plenty of our listeners who are going to be interested in understanding a bit more about you, buying your book, understand a bit more about the amazing work you do. We didn't have time today to talk about the brilliant work you do, creating chaos in the calm, or calm in the chaos. Sorry, wrong way around. But people can find that on your website. where can people find out a bit more about you if they're interested in understanding more?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for having me today. This has been delightful.
Oh, I loved it.
Best way is Paula at paulapetry.com. Paula at paulapetry.com, or Facebook, LinkedIn is another avenue, and reach out, send me an email, and
we'll put all your links on the show notes that people who are interested in connecting, they can do that. Thank you for joining us on the Kind Leash Project.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Wasn't that a good interview?
It was.
Are we moving on now?
Moving on.
Now it's the end of another podcast, but the end is never truly the end, because the end is always the beginning of something entirely new. And I have joke of the week.
Go on then, let's do joke of the week.
So this one's not field tested because
you normally field test joke of the week.
Usually I take them off the internet.
That's not field tested. That's just ripping them off the internet and hoping they
this one.
How is that a field test, Russ? A field test would be asking 10 people.
Some they were good enough to publish, so.
What, on the internet? You have seen the internet, right?
That's a good test and measure.
You have seen some of the nonsense on the internet, right?
There's Reader's Digest.
Oh, hold on, Russ. Hold on.
Oh, Reader's Digest. That's a different matter.
We changed.
Change the tone immediately.
Did you see how quickly our mood changed there? Oh, it's Reader's Digest. You know what that's like? It's like Marks and Spencer's, right? If somebody says, I'm buying a
meal deal.
Not a meal deal, actually. Not a meal deal. I'm buying a cheesecake, and you go, well, look, cheesecake comes in different qualities. It's not just any old.
Oh no,
cheesecake, Russ. It's not what.
Iceland do the best cheesecake.
Iceland? They make that in the pits of hell and drag it up in Iceland, didn't they? Iceland? What?
No, they only do that with their chicken nuggets.
Right, hold on. We normally do the bats at the end of the start of the show. Are you genuinely saying to me that you firmly believe that an Iceland cheesecake is the best cheesecake
from a supermarket?
From a supermarket.
I honestly can't comment. I don't eat cheesecake, but
right.
Then
why did you say the Iceland cheesecake was the best then?
Because it's nice and cheap. When I've looked on Iceland, it's nice and cheap. And they get good reviews on Iceland.
Have you been Googling the Iceland cheesecake to read the reviews?
No, I buy some stuff in Iceland. They do kilogram bacon and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Kilogram bacon?
Yeah, like a vacuum packed kilogram of bacon. And
that's a lot of bacon. Do you put on top of your cheesecake you don't eat?
You buy it cheap and put it in the freezer, don't you?
Right, but then this is the thing.
That mass buy and then.
No, right, hold on. Okay, quality versus quantity, right? Is the definition of a good cheesecake how cheap it is?
But this is the only way you're middle class, and I'm not.
I mean, that might be true. Let's have the joke from the Reader's Digest.
It's not. I made it myself, which is why I'm saying it's not been field tested.
This is a joke you made up yourself.
Yeah.
This is a Charlotte. This is all about Charlotte.
I came up with it when you and Russ were having banter about the internet.
Go on then.
What do introverts and bad Wi-Fi have in common?
Go on.
They're both struggling with connections.
Not bad. Not bad, actually.
I like that.
Actually, for one you've come up with on the fly, so to speak, I thought that was pretty good, didn't you, Russ?
I did.
And thank you for...
Maybe you should stick to your own man's computer and then Chris might not be so critical as he usually is.
No, because he'll just immediately stop being impressed with them because it's the format.
Yeah, I can't be impressed too often, Russ. You know that, otherwise it breaks the theme of the show. I mean, well, I tell you what I am going to do. I am going to order myself, apart from bringing in the game show format. Is it
curry or bagel.
Curry or bagel. I am going to go and get an Iceland cheesecake, and for the next episode, compare it. Just sit here whilst we're recording, eating first an Iceland and then a Marks and Spencer's cheesecake. I'll let you know live.
We don't have Marks and Spencer's here. They shut the one in Lynn.
What, in the best city in the world? They shut.
No, King's Lynn.
What's our nearest Marks's?
Hornchurch, Romford. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the Kindness Project soon.
Bye.
Bye.